Nikki, the podcast. Wake up.
Oh.
Oh my
Hey
God.
guys, welcome to the IBS Freedom Podcast. I am joined by my very sleepy co-host, Amy Hollenkamp, R to the D. And
Hey everybody.
today, if you couldn't tell, we are talking about sleep. Sleep. My favorite topic.
Ooh.
So I hope that we, like you said before we started that, I hope we win an Emmy for that performance of like a sleep Nikki and a sleep Amy. If you're not watching this on YouTube, if this is audio only, then you really missed out. You should go check out the YouTube video of that because I'm sure it's going to be quite amusing. But
oh my gosh, I'm like crying because I'm laughing. I'm physically trying to recover from that. It was how hard you committed to being asleep that I wasn't expecting. I like assumed a really cute, like unrealistic sleep pose, and you went
something
straight.
That's still flattering.
Right. You went straight there, straight to the deep sleep. Oh my gosh!
If I felt like spit would have showed up on the camera, I would have mustered like a little bit of drool. Also, because I feel like that could also be kind of a classic, but I figured it wouldn't really show up on the camera anyway, so what's the point?
Right. Oh my gosh. I am like hot because I'm sweating, or because I was laughing so hard and like trying to control it because I had to do my role.
Yes, and you executed it beautifully. I am so proud.
I don't know. I was losing my mind.
You're not usually the first to speak, so that was kind of a big step for you too.
One of these days, I'm gonna have to introduce us and try to really match the energy that you present. There. But I just feel like you do such a great job with the energy of the intro that I don't know. I don't think I can live up to that. So
we won't mess with it. Besides, I still, I have a role. I start us off, and then I always kick it to you of, all right, so we're talking about sleep, so give us a little primer on the sleep thing. So I always make you go first with, like, the actually clinically relevant stuff anyway. So we share the load. Hashtag share the load. Okay, so to that point, we're talking about sleep and how it affects the gut and how freaking important it is, but you want to give us a little bit of a primer or a little bit of a starting point, and then we will converse.
Yes, I think from a sleep, something that I feel like so many people are not focusing as much time and energy on. There's so much focus on the diet side of things and the supplements that sometimes I'll talk to people and they're getting either really poor quality sleep. I think that's pretty common. They're waking up a lot in the middle of the night. Maybe they're having trouble falling asleep. And then sometimes just the hours are not enough, not sufficient. And it's so normalized in our culture, kind of like stress. We talk about stress, and not getting sleep is a stressor in and of itself. Yeah. But I feel like it's this I'll sleep when I'm dead mentality is so prevalent in our culture.
That burn the candle at both ends.
Right. And it's one of those things too where I almost have to press people, and I have intake forms, so I'm not typically pressing too hard, but press them on like, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, I get enough sleep. And it's like, well, what does that mean exactly? And they're like, like 6 hours solid. And I'm like, oh, you probably need more than that. So there's, I think just having a reference point that's skewed because of our culture, or maybe like how your parents slept, like what the people around you, how their sleep habits were. But I think some of the research on sleep and circadian rhythms in the gut health space have more recently been popping up, and how important that can be at regulating the microbiome, motility, and I think just in general stress on the body. Your body needs to recover, and sleep allows your body to recover. So it's such an important piece, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because I oftentimes think, like stress, it's like an afterthought. Like, oh, you should be getting more sleep. But sometimes people that aren't getting enough sleep aren't probably paying as much of attention as they should to it.
So anyway, what are some other basic moves that you do to help people sleep better, even before we get into the nitty gritty of like falling asleep, staying asleep, circadian rhythm, etc.?
I think basics, usually with basic stuff, I like when I first work with a client to understand what's going on with their sleep, and see how it changes with some of the basic things. So one thing is nutrition in general. Like getting nutrition to be adequate can usually help a lot with sleep. Like if someone's under eating, I would expect that they could have really poor sleep.
Yeah.
So if under eating's at play, that's like primary step. So usually I'll be like, oh, let's check back in on sleep once we get nutrition up to where it needs to be. Typically, I will also try to help people establish like good light patterns. So trying to get some natural light in the morning to prime their body to understand that this is morning time. So it kind of anchors hormones and digestive processes and things like that in our body. If you have the master clock of the circadian rhythm being anchored by light patterns. So getting some natural light in the morning, I think, can be helpful. And that can be like through a window. I think obviously getting outside would be best, but we all can't do that. I have a window kind of right here. You can sort of see it getting some natural light on my face. But I think getting natural light can be really beneficial. Yeah. And I think the opposite's true with bedtime, is trying to avoid things like blue light that can affect melatonin release. Yeah.
And melatonin, again, for those of you who aren't aware, is something that it's a neurotransmitter or neurochemical that is released in your brain, and it's what tells you, okay, now is sleepy time. So it initiates sleep. It doesn't necessarily keep you asleep, but it initiates sleep, or it makes you sleepy. So continue.
And I think that limiting that, even if you're kind of wearing blue blockers, trying to kind of dim some lights at night, or like have kind of dimmer night light.
Mood lighting.
Mood lighting at night. I also think just in general consistency of bed and wake up times, if possible, is so important. I find too, and we've talked about it in the past, like one of the hardest parts that I think, having a child so stressful is how dysregulated sleep gets with like sleep timing and those sorts of things. We can maybe talk about that a little bit more, but I actually think that like sometimes people will never recover sleep timing, like sleep wake times, falling to sleep times for a long period of time, maybe ever. Like sometimes I'm talking to people it's been 3 or 4 years since they had their kid, and they've just never gotten back to a good sleep cycle. But typically meal times, bedtime, wake times, I think could be helpful with circadian rhythms. Those would be probably the basic things I would have people try.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Do you advocate no screen time before bed?
I do. I think there's people that still do. From just working with people, I think it's a hard thing to break.
A hard sell.
Right. And I think the probably worst thing to do is be on your phone and it's this far away from your face. Especially if you don't have any blue blockers or anything that's kind of affecting the tint. Yeah. My husband's a bad culprit of this.
I was just going to lean to the microphone and say, do you hear this, Nicole DiNezza? Do you hear this?
Oh my gosh.
Because my husband too.
Yeah, I don't know. And I even bought Armand blue blockers and he just doesn't wear them. I'm like, this is like this close to your face, shining blue light in, like it's right before bed. But we have some work to do, Nikki, with our husbands. But
even Mike, like we will sometimes watch YouTube videos in bed. Like if there's last night there was a new episode of You Suck at Cooking. Have you seen this channel at all?
No.
Oh, I'll send it to you later. So there was a new episode of You Suck at Cooking. So we kind of gathered around the phone, and when we watch things on my phone like that, 8 times out of 10, he will complain vehemently about the red filter app that I have.
Right. I have the red filter too.
Can you disable that? Can you turn that off? And I'm like, no, because it's for the exact purpose what we're using it for now. We are watching something on the phone. I could disable it if we weren't looking at the phone, but he gets all perturbed and like, I can't see it. It's all like, I'm like, oh wow.
Right. Right. I have that on my phone and it always like freaks people out. They're like, why's your phone red? I'm like,
my favorite is when I send screen captures to somebody, like a patient or a friend, and then the entire screen capture is like a pinkish reddish.
Oh my
tint,
gosh.
and they're like, what's wrong with it? And I'm like, oh, my circadian rhythm. Let me tell you about it.
Right. Yeah. So again, I'm certainly someone that at times will be on my phone at night. Usually I try to have my blue blockers on and have some things to mitigate it. I have, the red on my phone too. This kind of jazzy.
Oh, yours is redder than mine.
Yeah, mine. Mine, like you click the home button. Is that how yours is? I know yours is an Android, right?
Oh, yeah, mine's an Android. Do you have an iPhone?
Yes.
Okay, maybe that's why. Yeah, so like mine, let me see if I can put it up to the screen. All right, so I have an app called Twilight, and I think if I click this, okay, maybe not. Oh, there we go. It very gradually got pinker, and now it's back to normal. That was very not compelling. It looks really pink, but yours is really, really red. Yeah, that's
like
much,
people are like, what is going on?
Yeah, mine is gentler than that, but
that's why people are like, what's wrong with your phone?
Yeah,
it's like a demon has possessed it.
Yep. Yeah, and I use the app on my phone, and I have one installed on my computer called Flux that does the same exact thing. Yep. And then I will wear my big geeky orange goggles in addition to that, and then like that's kind of my normal jam. But yeah, I think it's such a hard sell, the idea of no screen time.
It is
before bed, because all of us just want to unwind for the day and like look at our phones.
Right. Right.
I've been trying to get better about that. I mean, again, my kind of defragment method for the evening is I'll watch YouTube videos, usually about Japan. And I'm planning my trip to Japan someday, so I'll watch like something related to Japan, typically, or the occasional "you suck at cooking" video. Right. But yeah, that's like my downtime. But I'm trying to get better, and I go kind of in spurts. I'm getting better about reading an actual physical book. For those younger viewers who might not be aware, we used to have things called books, and it was like paper, so they would cut very thin slices of trees, and then they would print words on it. And so I have some of these archaic books at my house that I'm working through gradually, but I'm trying to get better about like reading a physical book rather than watching like, a Try Guys video or something on my phone. So I'm getting a little bit better about that.
I'm the same way. I think like for me, I get into really good trends with, or like on a really good roll with reading. There are times where I'm just like, it's like 2 or 3 months I'm reading every night before bed, and then other times I definitely will be more on my phone. And I think again, there's ways to mitigate it. I think blue blockers helps. If you feel like that's like just a really great way to unwind, I'm usually not gonna like have someone stress too much about it. But yeah, and I'd love to kind of touch too on the sleep aids that you've used. So we can kind of touch on those. I know we were like messaging about valerian, which we were saying stinky valerian.
God, it's the stankiest herb. Oh my God. I was just sharing this on Marco Polo that we had a beagle who was terrified of thunder and lightning. Absolutely terrified. And I went to the Hippy Dippy bulk herb shop when I lived in Arizona, and I got a couple of different things. I got skullcap and valerian and maybe one other thing at the herbalist recommendation. And I got them home and I opened up the valerian, and it was so pungent. I opened it up, sprinkled some in her dog food. She immediately ate it. She was a beagle, so she would eat literally anything, including poop. So that, low standards is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
But she ate it. She gobbled it up right away. I sealed the container. I put it in a mason jar and I sealed it up. And like half an hour later, my husband came home from school And immediately he was like, what is that smell? Like he could detect it immediately upon entrance to the apartment. And I just laughed because it was long gone by then. But yeah, it was the stankiest thing I've ever stunk. But it can help. It's very, very calming to the point of being sedating. So if you feel like you're a person where you're like, man, I just wish somebody would like knock me out at night, it might not have the same level of effect as like a Benadryl knocking you out, but it does have a much more truly sedating effect to it. But it's one of the only, or maybe the only one I can think of right now. It's the only herb in the nervine category that is warming that I can think of off the top of my head. So it's better suited for people like me who are always cold. I wouldn't think of it quite as much for people who are really warm natured, like what you described, like you get hot in the middle of the night. I don't know if it would be as energetically suited to you, but for corpse people like myself, it could be well suited.
I've tried it in like a tea. I don't know what the percentage would have been in like a over-the-counter tea. Just like a basic tea that I found at the store that had valerian in it, and I feel like I got hit like pretty quickly, but then it kind of disturbs my sleep. Like I don't know, I'm a weird thing. Like things like CBD, I get really alert from. Like things that tend to be like sedating, I don't know what that means. Like sometimes make me even more alert.
What about, have you ever tried ashwagandha?
I do like ashwagandha.
Does it make you more alert and more woken up, or do you notice any effect cognitively from it?
I feel more alert. Like I just feel I feel pretty good on ashwagandha. Like I'm typically not necessarily like where I have a high level of perceived stress. Anyway, like there's certainly times where I'm stressed out, but like I feel like ashwagandha kind of, I don't necessarily notice like a huge effect one way or another. I just feel kind of stable with it.
Okay. Yeah, because with both ashwagandha and valerian, most people say that they are relaxing, but about, 5 or 10% of the time, people will get stimulated by them. So like I know one patient, I sent her home with a sleep tincture, which is just an alcohol extract with the herbs. And I mixed and matched it and formulated it for her. And the next time we followed up, she was like, yeah, that PM blend actually made me like really wide awake. And I looked at the formula and it had ashwagandha in it. And I'm pretty sure that it was the ashwagandha stimulating her. But that's kind of a less common reaction. Valerian also, I think similar numbers. I think it's like 1 out of 10 people will feel kind of stimulated from it. But most people find that it's sedating. I don't know why. Like what the difference would be. Maybe I'm not a hip enough herbalist person to say for sure, but that's my understanding, is that can happen with both of those herbs. If you're thinking, well, crap, like I like the sound of getting knocked out a bit before bed and having coming down a peg, but I'm always hot, so what would be the alternative? And I would say probably hops, which thank God this one is not energetically suited to me, because I despise the taste of hops more than anything. But it is a very cooling herb by comparison, and it's not as sedating as valerian. I think even some herbalists say that it is sedating, some say it's not, but it's effective enough that usually people feel a notable effect. Now, you don't want to be an alcoholic, right? Like you don't want to have a beer every night of your life just for the sake of getting good sleep, because then you're probably revving up some inflammation and it's not worth your while. But what I was sharing is that my husband, who loves beer and loves the taste of hops, but again, doesn't want the calories and doesn't want to be an alcoholic, he has been making hops tea, and it's like his new favorite thing. So he will get the hops from like a brewery store, and then he'll make it into a tea, and then he'll put some of it in the freezer and like parse it out and have a little bit of it. And he'll either drink it as like a cold beverage, or sometimes he actually uses, we have one of those soda stream things. He will carbonate the hop tea sometimes and drink it that way. So it's like a cold hop soda, which is like vomit inducing in my opinion.
Oh my gosh.
So you can get creative, or you could use it as a tincture, which would be a little bit less of a hit for alcohol purposes. But hops could be really like effective in that regard too. I really like passion flower, either as a tea or a tincture. It's very good for quieting the mind chatter. So if you have that voice in your head that's like, you know, I have 8 million things to do tomorrow. Did you answer that email? What did you do about that? Who's going to do that? Oh, you have to get to school by 8 a.m. If you have that going on all day, every day, and if that's plaguing you at night, passion flower can help that shut up a bit, and then you can start to doze off more gracefully. I will very frequently use it as a tincture because I tend to do like AM and PM blends for people, but you could use it as a tea as well. It's a very popular tea. And then probably my other favorite, sometimes I'll use CBD, but not always, just because it's expensive, no other reason than that. And then I was telling you that the thing that's helped my sleep most notably is lavender essential oil gel capsules. And for me, it sounds dumb, but for like the last year or year and a half of my life prior to taking this, I was waking up once every night to pee. And I know that sounds like not a big deal, but it was weird for me. And like, as the women in my family would say, I have good puckering strings. So it's not even that like I can't hold my urine, and it's not like I have a little tiny bladder. Like, I have good puckering strings. I can hold my urine for a good amount of time, and I think I have a good sized bladder. This is like way TMI. But for some reason, even if I peed right before bed, I would have to wake up in the middle of the night and pee. And it was just like the littlest bit of urine. It wasn't even like a big volume of urine. And I was like, what gives? Like, come on, bladder. I know you can do better than that. And I happened to start taking these lavender gel caps, just like one at dinner, sometimes another one at bedtime. And I was taking it more for stress purposes. And immediately, like the first night I took the lavender, didn't have to wake up to pee. And I have not had to wake up to pee in the middle of the night since starting to take these lavender capsules. So it's hard to say how else, but I think that it helps with anxiety and stress to a point where it allows you to sleep more soundly. So I've observed that the lavender gel caps have been really helpful too. I know Integrative Therapeutics has a product, and I forget the brand now of the one that I take, but it's called Lavender SAP. So you can Google that and find that if you want more info on it.
No, I think that those are great. I can't wait to do that Nervine episode. We've talked about it a whole bunch.
We need to do that.
We have to do a Nervine. I just want to see you go off on herbs.
All the herbs all the time.
All the Nervine herbs.
And the adaptogen one too. We'll need a whole separate episode on adaptogens.
Right.
Like, I like ashwagandha too. I do put ashwagandha in a lot of the PM blends that I do. It's just for like that 5 or 10% of people who get really jazzed up from ashwagandha, I have to take it back out. But yeah, I do usually include it in PM blends because it's just really nice for the adrenals, and most people find it either neutral or maybe a little bit grounding or relaxing. So most people, I can get away with doing that. But play around with it a little bit, see how your body likes it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like I like all those suggestions. I'm interested to try the lavender. I might have to give that a go too. I don't typically I sleep pretty well. I'm not someone that typically wakes up too much. But I think lavender is such an interesting. I like it. I really like it. I like that it has an essential oil. So I have used it. Kind of aromatically. I've used it. Sometimes I'll put it in my baths.
Randomly enough, I have dried lavender here at my desk. Like, you're an herb nerd when, but just sometimes I'll just like break off a couple of the little lavender doohickeys and like crush it up and smell it.
Yeah.
And it's lovely. I mean, I realized I could have the oil and it would do the same thing, but one of my best friends, she wanted purple flowers for her wedding, and then when the wedding came, she was kind of pissed because her mom got a bunch of these dried lavender flowers to put like in the aisles, and she was like, no, I wanted like fresh flowers. Anyway, it was this kind of big drama thing. But the take home was that she gave me a whole bunch of bushels of these bouquets of lavender flowers because like nobody else wanted them. And I was like, I'll take them. They smell amazing. And now I have them in a vase sitting next to my desk, funny enough. And every now and then I'll take one off and smell it. Or I had a patient once. She was exhausted after work, and we had our appointment. It was like the last appointment of the day for me. And she was exhausted. And she actually said, she was like, oh man, I hope I can get home because I'm so tired. Like, I hope I don't fall asleep at the wheel. And I was like, oh, that's scary. So I sent her home with a couple of these sprigs. And I was like, at every red light, every time you get, a moment, break off some of these and grind them up in your fingers and smell them. Because like the smell will kind of, lavender doesn't wake you up, but I thought just some sort of unique smell and some sort of stimulation to the olfactory nerve will wake her up enough. And she was able to get home safely. I don't know if it was because of lavender specifically. But yeah, sometimes my little dried lavender flowers come in handy. But I got them for a few years now. Good thing they last.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Love that.
Other supplements that I like or other herbs. I think ashwagandha, passion flower, lavender.
What about skullcap? I know you were talking about skullcap at one point.
I like skullcap a lot. Yeah. There's two forms. There's Chinese skullcap, which is Baikal skullcap. I use that more as an anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
The Baikalan in it is profoundly anti-inflammatory, so I'll use that as a single typically. American skullcap is I use more for the nervine qualities. In one of my herb books, I like the way that he worded it. The author said that skullcap it's a good nervine. It doesn't sedate, and it's not particularly like relaxing any more than another nervine. But he said that it can be really helpful for people who just, and again, if you're not on YouTube right now, you're going to miss out on the visual a little bit, but like the way that I picture the skullcap person is like this. Just like kind of like, like looking all around like, and like everything is attacking you, and like every ray of light, every sound, every molecule of air, you're just like, and like tense and like attacked feeling and like cringe. I don't know how to describe the face I just made, but I was like cringing and like tensing up my body a lot. You have to look on YouTube. That's all I got to tell you. But that's kind of like, that kind of tension is what skullcap is really known for soothing. Like the people who feel really like attacked and really just like really profoundly stressed. Yeah. I like, again, we'll talk more in the nervine episode when we plan that, but there's a lot of other nervines. A lot of them are good for sleep in some way, shape, or form. But probably the one that I use the most is passion flower, if I had to guess.
Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, click the like button, and leave a comment down below with the videos that you would like to see me do next. Doing all of those really helps support the channel and support my efforts in making as many videos as possible for you guys. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.